All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about one of the most famous texts in Mahayana Buddhism, the Diamond Sutra. Now, you might think of it as this universal guide to emptiness, but what if I told you its core teaching was actually meant for a very, very specific group of people? Let's get into it.
So, what is this thing really about? A lot of people pick it up expecting some foundational beginner level teachings, but the source material we're looking at today suggests that its true power, its real message, only gets unlocked when you realize it wasn't written for everybody. It has a very particular job to do.
And here it is, the key insight. The Diamond Sutra is not a Buddhism 101 class. Think of it more like a specialized postgraduate manual for an audience called Arhats. So, who are they? Well, in short, they're incredibly advanced spiritual practitioners. They've already climbed most of the mountain, but they've hit a very subtle, very tricky plateau right near the top. And understanding this target audience is the absolute master key. Seriously, once you get who the sutra is talking to, all of its famously confusing and paradoxical language, it just snaps into focus. It's all designed to solve the one specific problem that these arhats are facing. Let's just grab a little historical context for a second. So back in the early days of Zen, the main textbook, so to speak, was the Lankavatara Sutra. Super advanced stuff, all about the final steps to becoming a full Buddha. But our source explains that over time, that text just became too high level for most people. So the tradition made a shift. They started emphasizing the Diamond Sutra instead, precisely because it deals with the stage right before that. It perfectly nails the specific challenges of an arhat. Okay, so to really understand what these arhats are working through, we need a framework, and the sutra gives us one, the 4 marks of consciousness. The best way to think about these is as 4 deep fundamental illusions about reality that we have to let go of, one by one, as we move along the path. And this slide basically lays out the whole spiritual ladder. Most of us start down at the bottom as ordinary beings, totally tangled up in all 4 marks. We've got this solid sense of a separate me. We see other people as totally distinct individuals. We put all living things into different boxes, and we're stuck on the idea of a personal lifespan. Now in Arhat, they've actually managed to let go of that last mark, the lifespan one, but they're still stuck on the others. A bodhisattva goes even further. And then at the very top, you have a Buddha, who is completely free of all these marks, just resting in what the text calls great emptiness. Which brings us right to the heart of the matter, the absolute core teaching of the Diamond Sutra for the Arhat. That subtle roadblock they've hit, it's called the discriminating mind. This is the mind's automatic, deeply ingrained habit of slicing and dicing reality into separate, distinct things. To really get this, the source text gives us a fantastic analogy. Let's start with state 1. Imagine you're looking at a few ants, and you've put a tiny dot of colored paint on each one. You see each ant as an individual, and you can tell them apart. You can say, oh, there's the red one, and there's the green one. This is having discrimination. It's pretty much how we experience the world all day long. Now let's look at state 2, not having discrimination. Picture yourself looking at a lawn full of grass. You still get that each blade is a separate thing, right? The idea of individuality is still there. But you can't tell one blade from another. They all just blend together. You've lost the ability to distinguish between them. This is the state of mind an arhat is trying to cultivate towards all living beings. And finally, we get to the 3rd state, no discrimination. Think about bacteria. For most of us, bacteria is just a big collective concept. We don't think in terms of individual bacteria we could somehow identify. The very idea of their individuality doesn't even come up. We just perceive the whole group, the collective. That's the perspective of a bodhisattva. So let's just recap that real quick. Having discrimination, you see individuals and you can tell them apart. Not having discrimination, you still see individuals, but you can't tell them apart. And finally, no discrimination. The whole concept of the individual just dissolves. There's only the group, the whole. Getting this progression is absolutely key to understanding what the sutra is pointing at. Now, you might be thinking, okay, ants, grass, bacteria. This is a neat philosophical puzzle. But this is where it gets really profound, because this isn't just about insects or plants. This teaching applies to the very fabric of our reality, to our sense of self, and even to time itself. The whole journey for the arhat is to take this exact same mental process and apply it to the ideas of self and other. They are training to see themselves and everyone else just like those blades of grass. Individual, sure, but ultimately indistinguishable.
For the bodhisattva, even that distinction completely collapses. And it's the same radical shift with time, moving from seeing past and present as two different things to seeing them as the same, until eventually the very concepts of past and present just melt into one single, seamless reality.
Look, if your head is spinning a little bit right now, that is completely normal. In fact, it's a good sign. The source text makes a really crucial point here. These are states of being, not intellectual puzzles you can solve. The Dharma, the teaching, it isn't something you can just figure out with your thinking mind. That's a dead end. These are states of consciousness that have to be experienced through practice. So, let's pull all of this together. Why does any of this matter, especially if we're not advanced arhats? What are the big ideas we should really take away from this?
Okay, 4 key points. First, remember the Diamond Sutra is a precision tool designed for a very specific job at the Arhat stage. Second, the whole spiritual journey can be seen as this process of shedding these illusions, these marks, one by one. Third, that core challenge for an advanced practitioner is this subtle, sneaky habit of the discriminating mind. And finally, the ultimate goal is to shift our entire perception from a world made of separate, defined bits and pieces to an awareness of the undivided, seamless whole.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. We might not be arhats, but we all have that discriminating mind running the show 24/7. So the question for us is pretty simple. Where, in your own life, does your mind automatically draw these sharp lines? How does it constantly separate me from you, us from them, or this from that? Just starting to notice that process, well, that might just be the most important first step of all.